Hello everyone, my name's Karma King and I'm going to discuss with y'all the writers of American literature and their works. First off, what is literature? Literature is a body of written works. It is important in everyday life because it connects individuals with larger truths and ideas in a society. American literature is very important because it reveals the culture and history of the United States. First off, one of the writers of some of the poems that we read was Walt Whitman. He lived from 1819 to 1892. He was an American poet, essayist, and journalist, and he was regarded as one of America's most significant 19th century poets. One of the poems he wrote was Song of Myself. It was first published in Walt Whitman's poem Leaves of Grass in 1855. It includes many ideas of self-knowledge, liberty, equality, and acceptance for all. This poem is super long and does not really have a clear plot line or point to make, and the theme of this poem is about letting people know that everything will be okay, and I just included a little picture of the cover. Another writer is Mark Twain. He lived from 1835 to 1910. His real name is Samuel Clemens, but he is commonly known by his pen name, Mark Twain. He was an American writer, humorist, entrepreneur, publisher, and lecturer. His main purpose for writing was to entertain. He simply wanted to make people laugh. And he was widely considered one of the greatest American writers of all time. And one of the poems he wrote was The Notorious Jumping Frog of Calvert County. And it was also called The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calvert County. It is a short story written by Mark Twain that has origins in the Gold Rush era. He wrote it in 1865. This is one of Twain's first works, and it establishes his reputation as a humorist. And the theme of this poem is about getting the point across to people not to judge things by their looks. Just because something looks the way it does not mean it will not win, or that it's not any better or worse. Another writer is William Faulkner. He lived from 1897 to 1962. Faulkner wrote novels, short stories, screenplays, poetry, essays, and a play, and he even won a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1949. One of his poems was Barn Burning, and it was published in 1939. This story deals with the influence of fathers on their children. His father was very toxic, and he realized that distancing himself was the best thing to do. And sometimes people's family members can be bad influences, so distancing is unfortunately what's best to do. And the last writer I included was Ralph Ellison. He lived from 1914 to 1994. He was an American novelist, literary critic, and scholar, and he was named after the poet and journalist Ralph Waldo Emerson. He wrote the poem or story Invisible Man. It was published in 1952. It addresses the issues African Americans faced in the early 20th century. And the theme of this story is about racism and equality. People judge others because of their race, and that's why he was known as an invisible man. And lastly, just to sum all this up, American literature is very important because it reveals the culture and history of the United States. All of the writers I included in this presentation are a part of history, and the stories they wrote are all well known and simply great works. Alright, thank you all for listening.